How would you describe your art to a person who couldn't see it?
If somebody was to define my abstract work, it will give them a bright, like a bigger imagination that they have themselves, because I take you to a whole nother world that doesn't exist. I would say it would make you think a lot. It's not just the art itself. It's very big, very vibrant. Depends on what kind of style of art that I'm doing, but if I was to do artwork coming from my country, it probably give them a nostalgia, you know. There is some artwork that I do that has to do with women. It might make a woman feel powerful, depending on how other people are describing it around them, like a wow, like, you know what I mean? Because I make women look so powerful and they look like they're standing on top of the world. Animals, I love doing animals, so they would look very, I think somebody would think like, wow, she loves animals and she loves using the color blue. Blue means passive and calm, so that also would mean something to them based on the colors that I use. Yes.
So when we're on the topic of your art bringing nostalgia to those of your country, how does your art differ from other art from your culture?
Well, I think I'm the greatest at mixing the media, the acrylic media. I'm the queen at blending. Somebody say I'm the GOAT. That's already a plus as far as the craft itself, you know, creating the craft. I also think the ideas that I have, I like to be original, so I like to really create things that nobody's seen before. But you still using iconic things, iconic people that still represent my country, but with a style that still come from my imagination. So yes, that I think it differs from my originality.
Does it matter to you how people perceive your art?
I used to care at first. I think part of me still cares, you know. But I also know I put so much work because I've been doing this for 10 years. It's about to be 11 years now. And I think I know that deep inside I put the work and that nobody can tell me I can't do it. I always thought that art shouldn't be judged. And I always said to myself, I really shouldn't care how people see my art, because sometimes I could paint it and they still don't understand what I'm saying and they perceive it their own way, because art is really how somebody's looking at it, and you know. But I also had to realize that there are such thing as religion, there's such thing as politics, and I don't want to use my own imagination to tarnish how some people might see it and switch it up and everything, you know. There are certain things I don't want to play with, like voodooism, my cultural stuff. I don't want to just put it with anything that wouldn't make sense. I want, when I do something, that it actually means something to somebody. I know I'm gonna get judged, but I also think about my customers and how they feel and everything. So that, I hope that answers the question.
So before you talked about the types of art you do, which one speaks to you the most?
I would say abstract, because I think when I do any type of artwork, so I do portraits, I feel like God already created that. But when I do abstract, I feel like I'm kind of like the God of my own world, and I can create unlimited things that makes me feel like I'm a God myself, you know, and nobody can really judge it because I'm satisfied with it. I created it, you know, and abstract would be the answer.
Do you want people to perceive your art as intellectual?
So when I hear the word intellectual, it kind of boxes the idea of how smart somebody can be. It's like put it in the spectrum of this is the smartest person because they are intellectual. I want to be able to give my art to a kid and give it to a grandparent, give it to your generation, give it to somebody, and it still speaks to everybody the same way. So I wouldn't put it in the intellectual spectrum.
Earlier we talked about how people perceived your art, but how do you want people to perceive your art?
So I wouldn't say just perceiving it, the feeling that it gives somebody. I think that would be the goal, the way I want people to feel. I want when somebody to look at my stuff, they feel like they own a piece of my history. Because I think most people look at an artwork and they buy the artwork because it's beautiful. But I think if I share my story and they know who created it, then it makes the piece a little bit more beautiful. Because my story isn't so beautiful when you think about it, everything that I went through as a person. And then I get to create beautiful pieces. And I think that's what I want people to get out of it. Like how somebody with not such a beautiful story can create so many things that are so beautiful. And I get to have a piece of her story. Because at some point she sat down and created just for me while she's living in her story. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we're talking about your history with like your artwork, if you had a book about your artwork, what would be chapter 1?
I think my chapter 1 would be what people would expect my last chapter to be. I wouldn't know the name though right now. But I'm waiting for a successful thing to happen. And I had a lot of success. But I'm waiting for something to tick. For me to be like, that's the success that I want to put in the book. You know, I want people to see everything that I went through. So I think my chapter 1 would be what success would mean to me in the beginning.